What if you had a child with a terminal illness, and the only way to save him was to have another child, a Saviour sibling? What would you do?
We wanted to do anything we could to save our son. We've decided to create a Saviour sibling.
But is this the right reason to have a child?
Children need to be born because they were wanted, not because they're being used as a tool for some other means.
Two personal takes on a difficult question. What do you think? Is it okay to have a child to save another?
My name's Ami, and I believe having a Saviour sibling is an acceptable thing to do to save another child's life. When Jivan was born, we were expecting a fully healthy baby. We named him Jivan, which meant life. From the moment he was born, he started developing symptoms. He had severe rashes all over his body, and the more he itched, the more it would start to then open and cut, and it would start to bleed. You can imagine a 6-month-old burning all over his body. It's very painful. Jivan was diagnosed with Wiskott-Aldrich. The easiest way to describe that is like as if he's a bubble boy. He wasn't allowed to touch anything. His life expectancy was not past his 10s. We were told that there was only one real cure for him. That was to have a bone marrow transplant from a matching donor that would match 100% the blood type and the tissue typing. We realized quite quickly that there was no real chance of finding a bone marrow match. For an Asian, it was actually 1.25 million. The consultants told us that there is this new technology that they have that you can actually create a sibling donor that would match completely so they could give their bone marrow to the child in need. We wanted to do anything we could to save our son. And we had to do something quite quickly, otherwise his body would start to deteriorate. We've decided to create a Saviour sibling. Our daughter was born and we named her Jaya, and the meaning behind Jaya is victorious, so we're hoping that she was victorious in saving her brother's life. From the moment she was born, she was very strong, unbelievably strong. As if she knew she had a mission to donate her bone marrow. My husband and I were very happy to have her be put under general anesthetic to go through this procedure because her health was so good. Jaya was 6 months old when she donated bone marrow to Jivan. It was 100% accepted in his body, and so his bone marrow right now is 100% Jaya's. After almost 2 years, he's going to school, he can go to the playground, he can touch what everyone else touches, can do anything that normal children can do. So it seems that he's completely cured. We were planning on having more children after Jivan anyways. We didn't do this to design a child of a specific hair color, eye color. We had to go through this route in order to save our son. Reincarnation is the belief that after you die, you get reborn again and again and again. So she is given to him and she saved his life. I'm sure he has saved hers in a past life. If not, then he will do something for her in the future. So there's always going to be a balance. They both have a different place in our hearts for different reasons. And Jaya will not be treated differently in any way because she came to help her brother. It would be no different than if we just had created a normal child. Jivan is very aware that his sister helped him. She's lovingly given everything that she could to save her brother.
It's very rare for people in the UK to go through the process of creating a Saviour sibling. Only 4 were born in 2012, even fewer in other years. But that doesn't make it any less controversial. Here's a different perspective on the issue.
My name's Simon, and I believe we have to see a child as a human being first, not as an object to be used for his or her genetic material. And I think a very important part of our makeup as humans and our psychology is to know that you're loved and valued for who you are. And the problem with a Saviour sibling is just by using that title, you're saying that they have a value outside of themselves, that their value is in what they can do, what they were born to do. Children should be wanted as people for who they are. I'm a biochemist working at the University of Portsmouth. I went into science originally because I just think it's really interesting and exciting, and it's great to find out about things that no one else knows about. So there's this element of exploration. The main role that science has had in our society is to make a discovery about the world and apply it in terms of technology. And sometimes people get too carried away with the end, with the technology that's being invented, and don't think about what happens along the way. The ends don't justify the means. So, although saving a life is obviously a very high cause, one has to consider the harm that might come about in doing that, and make sure you've considered the good and the benefit of that child as much as the good and the benefit of the child who is currently sick and needing the help. There's also the risk that if they weren't able to save their sibling, and the fact is that that's probably quite likely to happen, that they could find themselves in the position that they know they were born as a saviour sibling and yet their sibling still died. A significant level of harm could be done psychologically to the child. Generally, people should be able to make decisions about what happens to them. Now, obviously, the child who's born has absolutely no choice to be part of this process of helping their sibling. I've got two sons, and when my oldest son was 3 weeks old, he had a very significant heart problem, was on intensive care, and the doctor did actually come to us at one point and say, you need to prepare yourself, your son's not going to make it. Thank God he pulled through, and he's absolutely fine. But as a parent in that situation, I was prepared to do absolutely anything that it would take for my son to get better, including if we'd needed a saviour sibling. At that point, I would have very happily gone in for that sort of thing. And all my nice, fine ethical reasoning flew out the window when it was to do with the well-being of my son. Which is why it's very important when decisions are made about what one should or shouldn't do in a situation, it's made by people who have that little bit of distance. Because if you were to allow parents who are in that situation to make up all the rules and the laws, I think a lot more would be permissible. Being in that sort of situation and having those feelings is not a good basis for ethical decision-making. Children need to be born because they were wanted, not because they're being used as a tool for some other means.
Representatives of different faiths and beliefs were asked how they felt about the question of saviour siblings.
From a Catholic perspective, it is important that every child is welcome, and every child is welcome unconditionally. And therefore, to have a child of a particular kind for the sake of someone else is not fair to that child. Part of a Catholic objection to assisted reproduction, to IVF, is that it involves quality control. This is seen particularly in saviour siblings, where somebody is chosen just for their characteristics. So they're not valued for themselves, they're valued for their use for other people or for those characteristics they have.
If God has chosen to give you a child with an illness, yes, we do what we can in terms of medicine right now, but to actually design a child to save that child, I find that very, I find it personally, morally very difficult to live with.
From the Anglican perspective, it would be all right to have a child to save another. Our basic understanding and our ideology about this is based on the fact that children, however they are conceived for their own self, that they are viewed as a gift. And therefore to have a child, trying to conceive a child who will also or may also be able to save a sibling with a pre-existing condition still is within that framework that the child is wanted for their own sake, whether or not they should be able to save their sibling.
Judaism sees God and human beings as partners in doing the best we can for the world. So if we make bread out of wheat or a healing drug out of herbs, we aren't playing God. We are part of a partnership in which we thank God for the opportunities we've been given to make things that are better. And this is how Judaism has seen the medical profession and healing as a whole. If things are for a good and a worthwhile purpose, and certainly saving life is preeminent among such purposes, then it's not playing God, it's being responsible before God and with God.
So now you've heard two personal views on this question, from Amy and from Simon, and a range of other beliefs as well. But what do you think? Is it okay to have a child to save another?